Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Session68. Moving along, and trying to still sing a song. Got nothing for 68. I know we're getting into the weeds with that, so we'll leave it alone. But just based on when we started this and based on where we are, even though we attempt to be evergreen on these things, we can call this one, I guess, the holiday episode. And I won't pat myself on the back, but I will be grateful to my own process in this case. I am taping a day late, according to a rigidity of purpose to do it a day before. And because, again, in the visualization of this taking over some kind of presence in my life, becoming the thing I do, I have to treat it like that. And one of the great things about being self-paced is that you can do it. As long as you don't blow a deadline, it doesn't matter what you do before it. So why would I shift into a self-criticism the day before when I would have rather have seen some daylight, some sunlight? And I kicked it with a friend and we watched some football because he was randomly at a store that I was at, and I improvised my day, and it cut into my usual time to sit here and ponder. And while putting it on tape and putting it out in the world and hopefully being productive with it, the point of pondering by yourself is maybe not as therapeutic and or helpful to me or to you as each of us not looking the gift horse in the mouth of hanging out with a friend unexpectedly. You understand what I'm saying? So that is a good reason to blow off work, if you know what I mean. And if we're lucky enough and pray enough and get to the point where this kind of thing can become work, then yeah, you'll have to not miss deadlines. But how it gets done and when it gets done is just the cement mix. You know, you make sure it gets done. That's all. And that is the job we all long for as creatives, as actors. It isn't that we wanted to necessarily work in restaurants or at night. It was just that the transient nature of it, and the nighttime gave us the feeling that we were free during the day. And while many years in the restaurant business can debilitate your sleep and your spirit, and that's why I always worked 3 nights, was it was for the flexibility. But were there some kind of day job that just lets you get the work done? Or if I could develop a skill set that was pliable but not requirable as far as ass in the seat, maybe, that would be the dream more than having a night job. And I guess it's that if you're creative, can you put some of that creativity into how you go about your business? And I guess that if the desk session will bear fruit of any kind, it might be me trying to figure out a way to use my creativity to figure out a way to turn $1. And, you know, maybe that process will be helpful in hindsight once the goal is accomplished, and it will be an effort and an exercise in humility and honesty previous to the goal being met. And that is the faith leap of the desk session, was that it started out as an accountability vlog to get me to the point of reading my play or producing my one-man show. And I have done the reading, because a lot of talking to yourself out loud is just like refined thinking. And so when you become and you put it out there, it's just an accountability. I had to do something. So the step of having a public reading was accomplished. The step of submitting it to a developmental theater company is part of the process and part of this process. And I probably talked myself into it because I knew I had to show progress. And so some of that is very worthy. And so Again, I will take a day with a pal or my girl over me sitting at the desk session, running my mouth, especially when it is an endeavor of my choosing and of I don't even want to put a qualification on it, but it is my furtive ground or fertile ground to populate as I wish, and it was a good call. So this is a long introduction to say I'm taping another day, and I'm okay with it. And then on the fitness end of things, I have been doing the gym, and I had to think about a friend hang or a gym. And a lot of people in the self-help sector or the productivity sector would say just dicking around with your friend is not as important as you getting to the gym and keeping your discipline. But I did walk, I did break a sweat, and I do think living to fight another day, having a positive attitude, knowing that Monday I have physical therapy, all of those things go into the calculus of me skipping a day at the gym even. Now today got away from me too, but for another good reason. And so, and as long as I get this done, then, and they say that stack the wins you can control. And I do agree with that. I guess being a late riser does put pressure on getting things done in the daylight for my mood and things like that. And ultimately this transition in my life, I have to be open to someday becoming an early riser, which it would be against my entire adult life. And that may have been something I modeled from my father, who worked in the newspaper business in the sports department. So that is a nocturnal shift. Not overnight, but definitely nocturnal. And so early rising is just not a thing that I ever got acclimated to, other than the rare times you do something on a set that requires you to be there. And I never miss appointments, and my habits of arriving early will still manifest even if I have to be up early. When I had to do a show, Room 104, I was so panicked and so angst-ridden about, you can't be late in the professional world, and you can't be late on a job that shoots on the Sony lot. You have to be, and if the call time was 5:45, I bought an extra alarm clock. I had my phone and an alarm clock. And people at my night job were making fun of me for being neurotic about it. And I'm like, you just don't understand, do you? You can't be late for these things. And that goes all the way back to the ethos and the ethics we were taught at the Carnegie Mellon School of Drama. We weren't allowed to be late. I think we had 2 or 3 unexcused tardies allowed per year or semester, something insane like that. It just wasn't an option. I had to go and get permission to leave for a funeral for my grandmother. These sound like infantilizing gestures of, cowering to the drama department, and this isn't that serious. And most people's college experience isn't that serious, but mine was. And it wasn't to be draconian and or domineering. It was to espouse the idea that the show must go on. You have to be there. Your presence is required. They can't do the show without you. And that's not to be a disciplinarian. It's to understand how important your presence is. And again, our presence is the thing that we are taking out of the equation. I just spoke about this today with my brother, that my fears of AI are that we've already, quote unquote, given up. We don't believe in the one-on-ones anymore. We're taking the one-on-ones away, right? And, we don't need an information booth. How quaint is that? I remember there used to be an information booth at Port Authority. I never needed it because the beauty of making sure you didn't get vicked in New York was you don't want to be caught asking for fucking directions. So you had to either fake you knew where the fuck you were going or knew where you were fucking going because you didn't want to get rolled. And so it was even before the threat of AI or smartphones or any of that shit, you would avoid the information booth, you know. But then as long as your head's on a swivel and you think you can handle yourself and protect yourself, why wouldn't you ask a question? All these things run through an overactive mind. But I guess the only way I can contribute to the kind of chaos or the fears that are allaying me or belaying me or dismaying me, I don't know what the belay term, holding the end of a rope while someone rock climbs, I don't know what that has to do with it. But dismaying me right now is the way I can counteract it is to indulge in a little bit of verbal intoxicating behavior in the public sphere, meaning being nice to people, saying that little extra thing, telling a quick story, being quick, being facile, being nice, saying hey to somebody who makes eye contact. I was in the grocery store and there was a dude who was managing the store and trying not to let it get down on top of him, and he said, hey, how you doing? He goes, hey, you want one of these panettones, you know, those holiday cakes? And I said, no, I'm good. And good for him, and then good for me for you know, picking up the hint and taking it a little further. And you know, not that his day is made or that it isn't, but more of that, make that the norm. And so that's sort of where I'm at with that. And as far as the holidays are concerned, I have to follow the lead of my girl being, particularly, it's a bad milestone for her, December in general, and for other reasons I won't share, and for the fact that it's her first year with you know, her father passing, and that's not that we're going to have a bad time, but we are going to sort of be on her turf with her people that are out here to provide her some comfort. And that I've learned, maybe too late, or I've learned that does make me feel a little bit purposeful to be of use, be of help, be of assistance, to stand by somebody. And that would be the best I can do this holiday season because of my usual blues. My usual blues are with me every year. I don't have to work in a restaurant this year. So again, that is true that it's a blessing, that an answered prayer that I won't have to be on the hook for Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve like I was last year. But it doesn't mean I instantly become a fucking Hugh Grant movie. You know what I mean? My feelings of blues and isolation and weirdness during the holidays were exacerbated and made manifestly more difficult being in the service industry, for sure. And then taking that equation out does provide some succor or relief, but the underlying sentiment remains. And I find myself also thinking about having it be, for my own sake, a little more of a spiritual inward look, and because of what's necessary for me to figure out my next steps in life. And I'll be honest to say that I wouldn't say at my wit's end, but I am at a point where I need to lean on faith, or lean on hope, or lean on, you know, better habits and things that are going in the right direction in my life, knowing that a payoff, or not a payoff, but that I guess everything will be okay. And if the ultimate not being okay would be someone passing or you perishing, even that, you know, what can you do? You can't pick the day you go. And I'm not getting morbid. I'm just saying, I joke about my dad every time we drive by a cemetery. He'd go, look at those lucky stiffs, meaning all the stiffs in the ground. And we used to get a little chuckle at that. And my girlfriend and I have adopted that. But I think that doesn't speak to a suicidal tendency. But I think what they always say to make people feel better is their worries are over. And so if that's the worst, that's why playing it safe is elongating the woe of this, and to not deny death or to deny mortality. It's to tell it to do what it's going to do. I'm going to live, right? I'm going to live until I die. Remember that song? And, that takes some doing. It actually takes some doing, I'm finding, for myself, Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of pain, fear of loss, fear of all of these things make you enjoy life less. And I don't think that's okay for me to do anymore. And that is why I think I gravitated to the arts, because I was looking for elevated states. There's an elevated state of being. You hear people say, I write great dialogue. Well, if you write conversational dialogue, it might not be what you think of as great, because all text in drama, plays and movies and things of that nature that are any good, they're all heightened text, heightened conversations. You don't have the conversation if you have a beginning conversation because it's the first night of blank in the story, or it's the first night something went bad, it's a breakup, some people say that every conversation is a negotiation, or that kind of thing. And so in the arts, in drama, I was looking for heightened states because I think it was the only way I could feel above the baseline. And what you find, and maybe even in the restaurant business, what was going on in a restaurant business? My first job was in a bar on the Upper West Side of New York. It was pumping. It had music. It was a hangout. It was a neighborhood place, but it was a destination place. People partied. People danced. There was live music, food. It was a heightened state of being, even though I was shell-shocked about how I was going to manage. And once I got inured to that pace, I'm noticing now that I was looking for heightened states of being. Why did I love drinking after work or nights off and carousing around the city of Manhattan or even Los Angeles? Because I wanted heightened states of being. My buddy in New York, my buddy Mike, who's running a fitness company now, who's one of my bartending buddies, he used to say, I just want to live life like it's in a beer commercial. And you can't, because inevitably there's a come down. Inevitably the water in your building will be shut off. Inevitably you'll tear a tendon in your foot. And that's about the sum of it. But the rest of it, and I'm not saying a beer commercial meaning the drinking part, but the rest of it that is in your control, I think you can say, I want to live up and not down, because there's plenty of down. My girlfriend has had so many downs and yet maintains her upward spirit. Not without boundaries, which is another step she had to take, but also even it's still just with an up spirit. She was very ill once. I won't get into the specifics, but I helped her at an open house, and she was still doing the pitch and telling everybody the square footage and still being great at her job and talking to the guy who was the ex-president of the HOA, and she just wasn't feeling great, but she was still doing her job. And I'm lucky that she's in my life, and we're all lucky. We see these people out there, and that's the great Springsteen song. I think that the real message of at the end of every hard-earned day, people find some reason to believe, or just to go on and to keep fighting. And I have to summon some of that up, because maybe I've been a little woe is me, and I don't find that attractive in myself. And I got to remember that, I haven't, until this little setback with my foot, I've been a hard-working dude, and I don't have to beat myself up anymore. I do have aspirations, and I do have wishes and dreams, and I haven't put them to bed yet, and nor do I think I need to. I don't think that's part of the deal with this pivot. I have to believe that. But I guess the way for Providence to intercede for you lucking up into something, for you being open to opportunity, is A, to be out there doing something, B, to get your attitude right, and maybe to be looking for where you can contribute, right? There's so much information out there, but, you know, the idea of adding value, you've heard that, but that's really what you're looking for. You and I've said it before on this format, that even in acting, when you're doing a scene in a film or on TV, they say, let's give it another, look, you want to do another take? Let's give it another take. It's a take from the camera. The camera's taking, because you have to give to the lens, to the story, to the audience. So if you're not aligned in the service of the script, or the service of the truth, or in service of what makes us glad to be alive as an artist, as an actor, if it's all egocentric, I'm sure there's plenty of egotistical actors, and I know many of them myself, but if you have to align with a value system, it's still giving more than you take. And that's maybe where opportunities can come by. But when I've demurred or cowered in the face of opportunities, not wanting to look ridiculous, not wanting to seem needy, I have shut myself out, and I'm not going to do that anymore, or attempt to not do that anymore. And really, all that fearlessness you hear about, that go get 'em attitude, that's a blessed place to be. That's someone who believes in themselves, or believes in the possibilities. And why wouldn't you, with all that's been given so far? And for me too. Sure, you could compare yourself, say I don't have as much as so-and-so, but I've been given a lot, and I have to remember that. And it doesn't have to dry up. In fact, it can be multiplied. I don't do the Bible. I don't profess to know it. I do know that it is so ubiquitous and so entrenched in our culture, just like Shakespeare and all that thing, that oftentimes you're either quoting Mark Twain, the Bible, or Shakespeare, with maybe a tiny bit of Oscar Wilde, or, Rumi. The very quotable stuff becomes so entrenched and becomes cliche. But I do think be fruitful and multiply does mean procreation, sure, and of course, and I just haven't done that, but it can mean multiply opportunity, multiply your gifts, put something out in the world, be a force multiplier, bring something to the table, come with your cup full, share, be present. And I guess as the blues of the holidays descend on us, I got to find a way to do that. For myself, though, too. There's times where you've overextended because of the pressures of the holiday season. It was very hard to be getting hammered, not drunk hammered, but like hammered by how busy it is on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. You can't think about yourself. You literally have too much task in front of you, and that can deplete you just physically and mentally. But if you also deplete yourself because of other ways of behaving, other ways of interacting, you can use the holidays as a time to fill your own cup, And so I hate the very special episodes, the very special Christmas editions. I hate that, there's this pause for the cause, because I maybe haven't filled my cup away from my yearning. And that can't be everything. Your yearning can't be everything. And it can't be an identity, or, And so this may be a shorter version of this. I have been a little talked out today, but I do have a wish for everyone this year, for me most of all, and I don't think that should take anything away from my caring, but one of the big themes in my show, the return of Otis Redding, let's put that out there, that 26 something is going to happen with that show. The return of Otis Redding, one of the big themes is not letting yourself down, And so for anyone paying attention, I'm going to try not to let myself down, and don't let yourself down. And that is fill in the blank or fill in pages of your journal to understand what that looks like for you. I know what it's starting to look like for me. I know what it's looked like for me over the years. And there is no virtue in self harm or self sabotage or self-loathing, if you will. I hope I never went that far, but there is no virtue in that, and it makes you less than a contributor, because it makes you and me in my past, it makes you more of a taker. If you're not, how could you give if you have nothing? If you're below this, and I want to get above, and so I want to thank this process for reminding me, these sit downs, that is the goal. Is I'm trying not to get only up to the rafters. I'm just trying to raise my base, your base level. And if I'm being honest, sometimes my base level was below joy, below happy, below, and it's not to be pie in the sky and to only think, but if I can raise the base, then that's a great goal for the new year, for the new pivot, raising your base, so that, guess what? The highs are higher, right? And I guess the lows are lower, but we're going to work on those being met with grace and with some resilience. And so that's my wish for the new year, for the holiday. I think if I do this right, there's going to be one right before New Year's. So we'll get into that and all my bullshit about not doing resolutions. But until that comes, have a good one with your people out there. And if you're in a support role or you're being comforting, do that with joy. And remember, people out there get the blues sometimes, but we're going to get through it. And another thing I've learned, as I shared this, my brother shared this with me as a doctor who was on call for the holidays. It really is just another day. And you don't have to feel any particularly worse. It's, I think, a Thursday this week. So, like, what would a Thursday mean to you in the middle of, March? Well, why does it mean so much? We know why, but you don't have to do that to yourself either, So, just try to raise your level, your base level, so that the highs can be higher. All right. Peace. That's Session 68.